Welcome to Ron Siegel Radio. Today we're discussing a critical topic for every homeowner and HOA member, rising insurance rates. With us is Cory Neubauer from Next Tier Insurance Services, a leader with 25 years in the industry, ready to unpack the complexities of insurance and how to stay prepared. I hope we can stay prepared. Stay tuned as we explore actionable strategies to protect your home and community. Welcome, Cory Neubauer. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me again.
Glad you're here.
Yeah,
So
we're starting to make this a pattern.
Yeah, well, you know something. It used to be that insurance was just boring.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you go and you buy a house.
Yeah, it's still boring. It's just now painful.
Oh, well, I don't know. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Right. I mean, because it used to be that you buy a house, you sell a house, you live in a house. You call your agent and get insurance and forget it. And you're 20 years later, you might, if you're still in the same house, which most people are not, you might talk to your agent once or twice. And you just keep renewing every year after year after year, and it's kind of nice and easy. And then you come up and 72,000 homeowners are getting terminated insurance.
By State Farm, yeah.
So now you guys might actually be getting a lot more calls than you used to.
So yeah, we're definitely a lot more popular these days. So yeah,
I'm not sure I like that popularity.
Well, no, it's not, and it's not all. It's hard to deliver good news when the market is where it's at. So with all the admitted carriers leaving California or reducing their risk, like State Farm and some of these other carriers, there's less and less carriers willing to write insurance in California.
So is it an issue that they're looking to reduce their portfolio, or that they can't get the rates commensurate with what the risk is?
Combination of both. So admitted carriers are regulated in California, are regulated by the Department of Insurance. So they can only raise their rates a certain percentage each year. And those rates that they're able to raise 7% or so are just not sufficient to keep up with inflation and everything you were talking about.
Right.
Today. So basically, if they can't charge enough premium to offset the costs of operation plus paying out the premiums, they're not going to write those policies. And that's what they've done.
Now, see, that's an interesting concept, because the vast majority of the population never thinks about that part of it. If they think, okay, well, the government can just tell the insurance company that they can't charge more money.
Right.
Which is true. They do that.
And they do that with the admitted market.
Okay.
So
so now you have to explain that to me, the admitted market.
So admitted market, basically there's two sides of the fence, right? The admitted market that is regulated by the Department of Insurance, and the non-admitted. So it's kind of it's a kind of crass analogy, but if you have good credit, you can go to the bank and get a loan at a reasonable rate. If you have bad credit, you might have to go to Vinny, the loan shark, in order to be able to to get a loan. It's the same thing with the insurance.
I didn't even realize they had
standpoint. So what you have is the admitted market is controlled by that. So you're going to have more regular rates. When you go to the non-admitted, they're not regulated by the state, by the Department of Insurance. So they can charge whatever they want, and that's why these homeowners are seeing, like, how can my rates go 5-10x of what it was the year before, because you're going from the admitted market, the regulated market, to the non-regulated market. So we were talking about
that's an interesting one, that you're allowed to even, because so many areas you're saying, I'm not even allowed to go from one to the other, right? I mean, I'm not allowed, if I'm not, as a lender, if I don't have my license, I can't lend no matter what I say.
Right.
But in this area,
I mean, there's over 100 and almost 120 admitted carriers in California alone. But a lot of those aren't writing that insurance anymore because it's not profitable.
So would that be, I got a question here from Rich. He wants to know, why did my insurance go up over 100%?
Yeah. And that's why, because you probably went from admitted carrier like State Farm, Farmers, Allstate, to a non-admitted carrier. And so those non-admitted carriers are not regulated by the state of California, so they can charge whatever they want, and they're charging enough premium in order to stay profitable.
So let's explore that a little bit, because you and I had a case that we were working on. And we looked at it, and initially we thought that they were going to be looking like a $3,000 premium, and then we found out, okay, there's 3 water claims, and it went to $15,000.
Right.
Is that because we had to go from admitted to non-admitted, or is it just because of the risk level?
More than likely, the admitted carriers have more stringent guidelines. Just as they're regulated by the state of California, they also want to make sure the risk that they're bringing on is less. So right, if you do have claims history, or you're in a wildfire area, or there's other attributes of the property that make it a higher risk, that's what's going to take them out of that admitted market, or the premium, getting that premium rate.
Okay, so when we come back, what I want to talk about a little bit is maybe you can share with us how do we
Get ahead of this.
or how do we deal with if we did go from admitted to non-admitted, is there something that we can do to kind of save a little bit of money? Maybe we'll talk about that when we come back. Continuing our conversation, Cory Neubauer is with us. Next Tier Insurance. He's out there on the daily basis dealing with all this insurance. Cory, now are other states going through this crap in the insurance world as we are in California?
Yeah, definitely. So you have to remember, insurance companies are not just in one state,
Right.
so they're in multiple states. So Florida is obviously, a hot spot, just like California, and many
And
others.
no pun intended.
Yes.
Well, the reason I say that is because probably, it's going back 4 or 5 years now. I had the fire chief for Anaheim was on the broadcast with me, and we wouldn't talk about this on air, but off air, he and I discussed the fact that some of our environmental policies are causing the massive the brush fires that we have in California. Well, some of the other states don't follow some of these same policies that we do. My comment to him was, hey, we used to, when I was a kid, you'd hear them talking about controlled burns. And they said, well, that's bad for the environment. And I said, well, is a brush fire good for the environment or an out of control fire? And he said, well, that's just the way it is nowadays. And I don't know if the other states have that same policy as we do in California.
Well, I mean, California's, we like our laws.
Yeah.
And
we like to control everything.
We like to control everything. So that's definitely, in California, that's definitely impacted it, right? Because the solution now is to provide more, more helicopters, more engines, which is great. But we got to remember that the insurance companies are not following the fire code. Just be a lot of in kind of moving forward with that. It's
like we as lenders, there's a law that you have to follow, and the insurance companies follow the law.
Yeah.
But then they have an overlay that they have to put on it to be in business.
To be in business, right? And a lot of people think, hey, I've done the fire mitigation stuff. I've pulled my brush back, done all these other things, but the insurance companies aren't necessarily using the local fire code as a reason to rate the property. Because I mean, again, with fire, those embers can travel up to a half a mile when the winds. So it's a whole different thing. But in regards to overall, just the state of insurance nationally, I mean, everything is still going up. But we see it more in California and Florida, a lot more.
Who would have thought places like the Reagan Library have come up with the simplest solution to their fire problem?
Right.
They've got those 700, I think it's 700 goats out there.
Yep.
Cleaning up the underbrush.
I mean, there's some people that are now they're staging fire protection staff that are ready to respond.
Wow.
Because it's getting so bad.
So how would somebody know if they have an admitted or a not admitted insurance company?
Well, I mean, the admitted, you're going to recognize the name, right? These are the big companies that advertise.
Okay.
The Geicos, the Allstates, all the main brands that you see out within the market.
Now the odd ones that I keep coming across, Lemonade, I think, or Hot Chocolate, or Bamboo,
right? So
are those non-admitted?
Those some of those are admitted carriers. They're just they don't have as big of an appetite, but they are taking some of this risk lately. Because all the standard non-admitted carriers are not writing anymore. So, but it's at a much higher rate.
So, what are some of the solutions that are out there? What are some of the? I mean, Rich just put in here that his rate went from 1,600 to 3,200.
That's pretty good.
Rich, that was good, buddy. Okay, so
no, I'm
it doesn't feel good.
I'm being facetious, but I mean, what we have to remember is that insurance throughout the years, like you said, you didn't think about it. It's been artificially low for many years. Think about it. You have $1 million property now, and you expect to pay $1,600. Think of it as a business. Like, how many properties does the insurance company have to insure at $1,600 to cover a loss of one property? So these rates have been artificially low for a long time. So there's two things that are going on. Inflation, all these additional construction costs, everything to repair is that much more expensive. And now they need to bring those rates up so that they kind of match with today's market. And so it's kind of a perfect storm of all this stuff coming together that's causing that. And these insurance companies just are not bringing enough premium in to be able to remain profitable. And that's why a lot of them are leaving the state. And we know capitalism works.
Right.
When there's multiple options. When there's less options, what happens? Prices go up because there's not competition. So the The hopeful solution is to let the different Department of Insurances let these admitted carriers raise their rates so that they can be competitive or profitable, and then they'll come back into the market. It's not going to go back down to $1,600, but you're going to have more admitted carriers that are willing to write that insurance, which will normalize the market. In the interim, with the client that you just mentioned, going with a higher deductible could be a potential way to mitigate some of that increase.
So we have to help with that part of it, because I've talked about that. Maybe you and I have talked about that in the past, as far as a higher deductible.
Yeah.
And the issue with higher deductibles is we don't save money in this country.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, for the most part, I mean, when you hear the statistics about how many people, if they had a $400 event on their car, they couldn't afford to get it done, or they had to put it on a credit card. So I know I've got two solutions for higher deductibles. Let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, no, I get it. And in a normal market, that wouldn't be the case. But if you're looking at, like, your client, a double the increase, you're going to spend that money anyways.
Right.
So instead of giving it to the insurance company and waiting or anticipating a loss, you save that money, or you at least don't spend that money and maybe pay a little bit more when an actual claim happens. Most people are intoxicated by this low deductible, thinking that they're protected. But we were talking about car insurance, right? If you have a $500 deductible and you have a $700 accident, are you really going to file an insurance claim? Probably not.
Right.
So then why are you carrying insurance down to $500? Raise that up. It's the same thing with your house. If you have a $1,000 deductible and there's a $1,500 loss, are you going to file an insurance claim and impact your insurance rates for the next 3 years? Probably not. So why carry that lower deductible if you don't intend to use it? So each person needs to understand where they are financially, what they can accept. Personally, for me, I've raised my deductibles to $5,000 in my house. If something happens, I'm going to self-insure for that first $5,000, but that helps to keep my rates down, because at the end of the day, the insurance company is going to charge you more if you file claims. It's frustrating. You're like, I pay all this money,
right,
and I should be covered, but let's not put our head in the sand and not know the reality of this is a business for them, and that's what they're going to do. It's just like your driving record. If you get a speeding ticket, your rates are going to go up. So it's the same thing. So it's managing your insurance, where before you just set it and forget it. Now you need to manage one more thing that you need to be aware of and not put your head in the sand. And when you do get that renewal, go out and shop. The problem is that there's not, everyone thinks, well, I can save 20% if I go somewhere else. The underwriting guidelines, which are the rules that they follow, are becoming more stringent, not less. So your house, it needs to be in good working order. Some of these companies are sending out drones to look at your property to see if there's stuff, if you're a pack rat or not.
Yeah, we've had some home inspectors that's a new product that they're selling now.
The other one I've seen is one of the admitted carriers said they're requiring their insured to walk through the house with their camera and record a video of the interior and exterior of their property to show the overall condition. Because before, it was always assumed that you kept your house in good working order, right? The roof was, current, the electrical, all that stuff. But now they're wanting you to prove it.
Yeah, makes sense. So we've got two different solutions that might help you in covering in dealing with the deductible. We're going to talk about that when we come back. Continuing our conversation, Cory Neubauer, Next Tier Insurance, is with us, chatting about everything we didn't plan on today, Cory.
Yes, I know. What were we going to talk about anyways?
We're going to talk about some of these HOAs where we can't get insurance.
Yes. So we specialize in HOA insurance. But that's becoming, just the individual homeowner is seeing those double increases. These HOAs, they have a master policy that is covering the structures, and those are skyrocketing.
So I wanted to find this out, so I'm sure other people want to know the answer too. You go to a community, a condo community, and we were talking about, I think Coda de Casa has gone in their condos where they're now no longer covering the insurance as far as the HOA.
The structures.
The structure.
Yeah.
And the insurance company is saying, we don't want it either. So people have to go to the FAIR plan. Now, if you've got a common wall with somebody, who's responsible for that fire?
That's a good That's a
The
good question.
judge?
That's a good question. It does definitely get complex because right, the initial thing of an HOA in the community was right that you're in a common development,
Right.
that you're all pulling together, and this is now spreading that apart. So it hasn't really been tested in that sense. That's going from individual unit owner policy to a more like a homeowner's policy. Well,
Right.
yeah, you do have common walls because what happens if your neighbor doesn't buy insurance? Now you got your house rebuilt minus the interior wall of your neighbor. So yeah, it is challenging. And the fair plan has always been the plan of last resort,
Right.
and that fair plan is now growing exponentially in size, which is not necessarily a good thing because again, it's if you want something done well, you let the government do it, right?
Well, I did hear that we're 16 years into the Governor Newsom's 10-year plan for homelessness in San Francisco.
Don't get me started on that.
So yeah, you're right. I mean, the government's always got the best answer.
So really, the path that should be is you should go to the admitted carriers. If you can't get coverage there, you go to the non-admitted, and then you go to the fair plan. The intoxicating thing has been that the fair plan has been a little lower in price, so people are going to the fair plan, skipping the excess and surplus or that non-admitted market.
So do you guys handle all of those?
We do.
Okay, so if you need help with all of that, you just call Cory and let him deal with it.
And that's where you're saying in your pitch there with having a trusted partner, right? This is very complex. It's not simple. You don't have to know all the details. It's get to the right people and let them show you the way, because it is, and it's continually changing. I mean, from 30 days ago, things are dramatically different. So yeah, it is. But with regards, circling back to the fair plan, it's supposed to be the last resort, and it's kind of like with health insurance. How long do you want to be on COBRA?
Right.
For as short as possible.
Absolutely.
And now that's being used as a solution. The problem with the fair plan is it's not a full encompassing policy. It only covers fire. So it's not a full policy. So you have to get another policy, a companion policy to cover the other losses. So
are admitted companies covering the other policy, or are they away from that also?
They're few and far between. If you're in the area of last resort, so you're seeing these cancellations left and right. So it's a challenging market for sure.
So here's the issue that I see, especially as a consumer advocate, as I look at it. 25 or 30 years ago, I went and got an insurance license. I needed it for Merrill Lynch.
Right.
And when I went to get the license and sit for the classes, the lady said, you guys that are here from broker dealers, we don't want to hear from you because all we care about is getting the right answers to get the test completed. And you guys try to think about this stuff too much.
Right.
So you got a lot of people that went through those classes, got insurance licenses it was really simple then. And now you're really having to be a expert at your craft.
A surgeon. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you're looking at people that may do this just on the short come on the as a side gig, they may not be able to get you the answers you really need.
Well, it's definitely like for us, right? We focus on HOA, so everyone has their niche. So working with people that understand that is most important. So on the homeowner side, we understand it. We have good referral partners. It's a matter of having access because every day, just like the interest rates are changing, the carriers that are covering these things are changing, minute by minute.
Rich, I'm going to have to send you a cocktail here because I see, so he's dealing with the HOA as well, going from 410 years ago to 840 now, 580 to 840 in 3 years. So
and that's
you're getting all of them, Rich.
Yep, Rich. I feel your pain. We have that with so many clients. We have one right now that we're quoting it. Last year it was 100,000 and now it's 300,000. We have one
for an association
for the whole home. But right, you have to multiply,
which then trickles down to every
every
individual
who's going to pay for it. So that goes back to the Department of Insurance as well. If they're going to regulate those carriers, the admitted carriers, they also insure the HOAs. So all those HOAs are having to go to non-admitted, and who's going to pay the premium? Ultimately, the individual homeowner through their HOA dues, or they have to get
or
loans
special assessment or something.
With the special, I mean, Coda de Costa, we had a client that it was $7,000 per unit owner for 1 year of insurance. So it's different if you get a special assessment and you get a new roof out of it,
right?
But 1 year's of
1 year lifespan.
Yeah, so it's getting progressively worse. So the HOAs are going to higher deductibles, but then and less coverage, right? They're not getting the full coverage for the property. which turns into
which
lending
then becomes
issue.
a lending issues that because we want to have full coverage if we're going to, as the lenders are going to say, hey, you know something, we want our collateral to be covered, to be protected.
And those FHA and Fannie Freddie requirements are very, you know, cut and dry. But it's, you know, they're having to modify those, or at least look at different options in order to keep loans going.
Which goes back to the same thing is if you want someone to do it right, are you going to call the government?
Yes.
So, and you know, something as leading a lending team, I say the same thing is we do have the non-traditional lending sources. They're out there saying on a case-by-case basis, we'll look at it, but they want to know, you know, because I think most of them realize that if you're in the middle of downtown Anaheim and you were canceled by State Farm, you're probably not in a high fire risk area, right? I mean, you know, if you're in Anaheim Hills, maybe you are. Maybe in Chino Hills, you are. Go to Casa, you might be.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're on the coast of Newport Beach, you're probably not in a high fire risk.
But the fire risk has been the big hot topic for the past couple of years. But the insurance companies have already baked that in now.
Have they? Okay.
The next thing that they're working on now is aging communities. So you said Anaheim. How old is Anaheim?
I think 1867 or
but
something.
Even even South Orange County, all these developments, you know, the insurance companies after 30 years, they expect things to be improved or replaced.
Sure.
That means,
and we don't have any money right now.
That means electrical
We're
wiring.
broke.
Yeah, electrical wiring, roofing, balconies, all those things. So that's the next thing that they're looking at, and that's why the rates are going up as well, is the aging communities. Have you ever heard of a Zinsco panel, which is an electrical panel that a lot, and especially in California, was used, and it's on recall. It can potentially start a fire.
Wow.
So if you have those Zinsco panels in your community, your rates, you're not going to be eligible for admitted carrier anymore. So they're going to push you to the excess and surplus. So it's some of the existing attributes of your community that will make you less insurable. Not that you have claims, not where you're physically located, but the age of your community. So all these things are coming into play. And again, we talked about that perfect storm. It's all coming together because the insurance companies are realizing this is where we're losing money. So they're stopping the gap. They're filling.
Well, it might help some of the other people then.
Yes.
And again, if you have if you're taking proactive actions, I was with somebody the other day and I had heard from one of the other insurance companies also is they have these fire alarm or water alarms.
Yep.
Right. And if you have the water alarm, I think you get a discount on your insurance policy.
So it's a water shutoff valve.
Right.
Yeah. So if it sees that there's a large flow, like a bathroom, you know, like a toilet back or flowing, it'll shut it off.
Right.
And again, some of those are going to, you can get a better rate if you put those into. Now we're requiring those in order to get a renewal. So there's tightening up their underwriting guidelines overall.
And I think from what I was just told yesterday, I think those are like $1,500 to $2,000. If you can save some money on your insurance, it might be worthwhile.
Definitely.
Great information. I appreciate you coming in and sharing with us. And we'll have to have you come back and talk about some of the things we planned on talking about.
Thanks for having me.